Hello, everyone. It's SIG Release Monday, August 12th. So two things I had in my mind, Rado, and others. One is obviously when Liam is back. Uh, I think we should start with the document that we talked about the process that we follow with branching and stuff. Take the iteration of the document, and then I think the document will reflect the current state of how the release process is happening. And then we can see how we can better that, and then do the automation, some of the steps that needs automation. I think that's, I think probably from a release perspective, Rado, I was thinking probably that should be our one of the most important tasks for R4. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, absolutely. Speaking of documents, I've started some work with adding more details to contribution guide, which is in contributing MD in Nephew repository, as well as adding kind of like a community guide, which describes roles like who's approver, who's reviewer, and stuff like this. I will have them probably this week ready as a PR. They are, of course, up for a discussion, so any changes there are also welcome. So this will be, I'd say, like a basis to go further with kind of the whole release process documentation, which we can work on based on, like, we have to define roles, like, who's who. I will assume. So yeah, that's basically what I was thinking of, and yeah, hopefully for the whole release process. Yeah, it is very important to have this documented, not only for like new people joining in, but also in case, like, different things happen, right? So you have to be prepared for basically anyone to take over this role. So yeah, that's I would say that's the important part, and we've kind of flew by this doing last 3 releases, but I guess we have to, as you said, kind of switch focus for a minute to have also the, like, the official part of it, to have basically everything, like, have a process for everything documented. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, thanks, Dada. I think thanks for starting that. I think please, when you put a PR, probably others will jump in to add the content. Really appreciate you doing that. Yeah, I think probably we should. I think once Liam is back, we will start with the documentation about, like, what is the status of the main would be, how the main should look like, and what should we ensure, and then especially the catalogs where the CRDs are involved, the APIs change. I think that's the thing we fell into this in the R3 release. It was not in sync with the rest of the repos. So I think this is a very good first step that you're doing, and then I think my goal is when we do the R4, Rado, like you always said, I remember all the 3 release parties now. You started, and then my hope was, Rado will click a button, and then that's it. I think probably we should reach that state. Let's make it a go for all 4. Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately this should be automated job, which is triggered by something like really insignificant, like changing the version number in some file, like, the version file, and it triggers the whole build and does the whole release. This shouldn't be manual process. First of all, it's always prone to human error. Pilots who very well know how to pilot the plane, they have the checklist, because you always can mix something up or forget something. And yeah, so I guess there's no reason for this to be manual process in such a to contain such multiple steps done manually. So there is work done already to automate this. We just haven't used this in R3 any of those scripts, because as it turned out, there are some differences, namely with which was with like catalog repo versioning.
Yeah.
There were some problems with some also hard-coded stuff here and there, and we actually went with the manual path, because otherwise we would end up in even bigger mess than it was. So,
Yeah,
but there is some base work done for it. So it's a first step, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we bumped onto two main things. If I were to summarize or abstract it, one is the catalog repo, where the catalog has a version. Obviously, the repo has a version, and inside the catalog, we mentioned the tags, etc. Where exactly to pick the image from, and then obviously the test infra. Test infra one, like you said, data that is easy to fix. Probably we can just automate the test infra to look at a file to pick up a version for images, or which exactly port to look for, which tag or branch. I think that is easier one. I think our biggest challenge would be the catalog repo. How I think Liam expressed some concerns. Even I would like to be here in that complete automated state, like you said, but Liam had some concern, like if especially when the CRD API changes, he has some concerns whether the catalog would reflect immediately, or what kind of a discipline that we need to have. Uh, I really want to have him in the conversation, probably. But yeah, that's a very good goal. That's actually my goal as well. But at least if we can release R4, on a release day within 1 or 2 hours, that would be a great achievement. uh, I think probably that's one of the main goals
Absolutely.
for this release. For this,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would look like that even in R3
yeah,
if it wasn't for the problems that we've hit, because even with manual processes, like when we're doing the first release, then 101, then R2, the main part of work, even done manually, it was like in hour we were done. The problem was then things that surfaced which we didn't catch during in end-to-end tests, or some version was different in some file, something was hard coded for other versions or something, or we didn't test the proper version. Problems like this. So but generally I think it's super doable to have this automated, that it's, as you said, it's like pressing one button and it's good to go. Just check the logs and go celebrate.
well, thank you. The other thing I wanted to ask, the contributing guide that you're playing a part, that you're writing, it's going to the docs repo, right? So that it can also be published in our docs.nefio.org.
Yeah, I mean, it could go to docs, of course, but I just thought like those two documents, it's good that also they will sit in Nefio repository, because it's like a main point. If somebody wants to work on Nefio, goes probably first to Nefio repository, not test infra, not API or whatever. So it might be a link there, so it just says like a contributing MD, but then it sends to the documentation. But
Okay.
I also like the idea that Liam mentioned. Sorry, Fiacra mentioned sometime that documentation should live, along the code in the same repo, which I also kind of I like the idea. So at least for those two documents, I would say they should have either in full or maybe not to maintain them in the same in the two places. Maybe in Nephew repository they should have only contain the link to the dog repo. Maybe that's of course up for discussion. But I feel that they should be a part of Nephew repository.
Yeah, I think I agree. That's a good compromise. I agree to that. The reason why I said it needs to be I suggested about the docs because then it can go to the main documents. Somebody browsing the documentation without official documentation, they will also know how to contribute, and it is in line with other projects such as Kubernetes. So, but I agree with you. I mean, we should at least put a link in our main Nepio report to this document in the docs.
Right.
I think I just want to make. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Speaking of dogs, I was also wondering about one case. So we had a report that one of the part of the documentation for installing web UI is not complete. It's mentioning Nephew packages repository instead of catalog. So I was also wondering, we also don't have a process to update those and how it will reflect the release, because basically it's bug in documentation, right? So we have to replace the installation step is the same. You just have to replace the URL. So do we fix this in main, port it to R3 and release the docs again, or do we wait for like 3.1 or something? There's no process for that. And also, I think that's something that we should think about.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Tal has hand raised. Tal, please go ahead.
Yeah, so if we are talking about the web UI, I wanted to delay this a little bit, but we're raising the question over the future of Porch, right? And how long we want to support that. The Porch UI is I think we can all acknowledge the place we put the least amount of attention. I think we need to ask ourselves, even if we stay with Porch, do we want to keep this UI? We've had a bunch of people coming in over, I think, the past year who wanted to contribute, and they're like, "Oh, we're web developers. We can maybe help with a web UI." And I think as soon as they delve into it, they realize it's not a very standard UI application. So I guess my point is this. I don't know what the future of the web UI is. I think there's probably a chance of rewriting it maybe in a way that there could be more ownership within Nephew, as long as we're owning it. Mm-hmm. So I'm just hesitant to invest more time and effort into that web UI until we decide as a community what we want to do with it. So it's true. Right now, we're kind of in between because we do ship the web UI and there is very poor documentation for it and it's quite buggy. But it could be that the good way to do is just mark it in the documentation. Hey, this is an experimental part of Nephew. It's not fully supported. And here be dragons. If you want to go with this, you can try, but we're not really guaranteeing that it will work well. And in my opinion, that would be just the most honest approach to it. But it's up to the community. If somebody really feels like they can sit down and document it, that would be great. But I wonder if it's the best use of our time until we decide what to do with the web UI.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing. But generally, like the question was more like what approach we should take when it comes to fixing bugs in documentation regarding to the release. So we will so the user reported that it's unable to install web UI for whatever reason the user is doing. But as you said, we're shipping it, so we should at least provide the valid command to do it. And there's a bug in the command that's normal. Mistakes happen. But I was just wondering this should be probably like we should override the release of docs with this fix, probably, right?
Yeah, I think if it's just the minimal just to set it up and get it running, I think that's something we can do. I mean, because it does work. We do set it up, but I guess the documentation is wrong. Yeah, I'm just sorry, this is a bit long-winded, but I'm just don't want us to go too far into web UI until we decide what to do with it.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
So yeah, I think sorry, I was distracted. Yeah, a couple of good things from Tal here. Let's say we fix the documentation to, I mean, like you said, that it's a URL change or like report change. But you're also not testing through the UI. I don't think anybody is using the UI, at least the core community who is testing. I think, do we have cycles to do it? Do we really validate it?
Some people do it actually. I know Ravi was actually using always the UI to do some of it.
Yeah,
but
so
we don't have a
installation
testing, of course. We don't have a
installation
QA
problem
team.
has been reported by user. Yeah, so
okay.
But I agree in general that we don't want to add too many features into UI at this point of time, right? When they stabilize it, maybe.
Yeah.
Just issues.
Yeah. So I'm thinking actually for the R4 release, should we take out the UI portion?
Why?
No, from the documentation at least. I mean, unless that is okay. I'm okay. I'm just contemplating. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just thinking if we keep the UI, at least we should have some confidence. At least if one of the community members, volunteers and tests through the UI, then we can definitely. I'm probably you should ask the question maybe in the SIG automation talk.
But yeah, that's just it. That's why it'll be on the agenda later.
Yeah.
But I think I'm saying we could still put documentation, but really mark it as this is experimental. It's not well supported, and just have a one pager about the web UI, and also point out please use the command line now instead, right? Although I do know that some personally I never use the web UI myself. But I know that we do have some people who have, and maybe they would be a better people to write that page. But yeah, nothing more than a page, and just point out that this is unsupported. I think that would be good enough. So, it's still part of Nefio, so we do need to say something about it, but we can point out that it's just not well supported. I think that's totally fair and useful.
Yeah. True. So, but for the immediate issue that Rado brought, Rado, I think you're thinking we should fix that one, right?
Yeah, because there is documentation, and there is actually just a one page which explains like how you deploy web UI to already functioning Nefio installation. So one user was trying to do this, and it's referring to catalog to Nefio packages repo, which is obsoleted, and thus installation failed. So there's we just have to switch the URL there basically for the repo. And I was wondering if we should do it also inside of the R3 release for docs, just as a fix, or publish, I don't know, the 301 release of documents repo. We don't really have a process for this. So let's forget about the UI. Let's say in Nefio there is a bug in documentation or something, right? So wrong URL or whatever. How do we fix this? We don't have the release process for this, for fixes like this. So if we will wait until the 301, which will probably happen if there's enough, let's say, bugs. Of course there are none, but if they assume that there will be bugs, but and we decide to release 301 regarding to bugs in code, right? So we will actually keep this like many people could get, in this, try to install something and it fails, and it just adds to the frustration of, the potential users.
Yeah, I'll add my 2 cents about this. That we talked before about the option of backporting, right? Because that's the topic here. Do we backport fixes of various kinds to an already existing release, or do we release a point release? I think we've decided in the past that, Nephio is not in production yet. It's not at a state where, let's say we have a user of Nephio and they're using Nephio 3.0, right? And they're like, oh, we can't upgrade to Nephio 3.1, so we need to backport fixes to 3.0, right? We're not at that state yet. We hope to be in the future, right? If Nephio is in production, then upgrades are costly, and then you might be backporting things, right? We're not there quite yet. So I think it's reasonable for current users of Nephio, to say, oh, just use the latest Nephio, like 3.1, and ignore 3.0. However, I think documentation is always a little bit different, right? So we could potentially only backport fixes for documentation. So let's ignore code, because that's far more complicated, right? But maybe we can have a process by which we upgrade documentation. And in a way, we kind of do, because we already have the latest documentation, right, from main. So yeah, but then, users go to main and it might already have fixes for the next release that are not, it's not the best place to look for, the most consistent documentation. So sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but I'm saying, like, let's maybe not create a process for backporting fixes generally quite yet, because that's always very complicated, but maybe we can think about a process for backporting documentation fixes.
Right.
And with that, I think maybe we should talk to Gergely, who is most familiar with the release process of cutting documentation. And maybe he has an idea on how we can make it pretty easy. Because I know it's based on tags. So it would mean like updating the tag for documentation. There is an option of doing kind of 3.0.1 just for documentation repo. Right. So the other repos would be on 3.0.0, and maybe just the documentation repo can be something like 3.0.1. So the documentation repo would have a different tag system, slightly different than the rest of the repos. But I think that might be acceptable and coherent enough that it won't confuse us.
Actually, Tal, I was thinking, would that even be needed? In my understanding, it is looking at the branches. Again, Gergely may confirm that. Timo, if you also know this.
Oh, you might be right. You might be right. Sorry. And yeah, I think you're right, actually. And in which case, that would be far easy to do a backport. Yeah.
Yes, we should just cherry pick this into the branch. Right, Tal?
Yeah, if that's the case, it's far, far easier, because we don't have to mess with tags. We just have to push a new commit to the 3.0 to the R3 branch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we should probably confirm with Gergely just to make 100% sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think like you said, Tal, for the docs, it's kind of easy, but for the if there is a problem in the code, especially in catalog, we'll that's let's not worry about it for now, and let's worry about that release documentation and automation that we just spoke about, Rado, and then worry about this process. If documentation, like it's okay, not much. Even some of the anything that is product related, that's going to be a bit tricky. Yeah. So just Tal and Dada, just curious, if you were to say, like there is a bug in, say, specializer code. I'm just picking it up in 3.0. And then we need to put a fix to that. Can Tal, Dada, can you guys help us understand, what's the overall process followed there if we end up in that situation?
Yeah, so I think the correct way we work with right now is to publish a 3.1 or 3.2
Okay.
And the idea with the minor version, semantically, it means that this is a drop-in replacement, right? So we're not changing APIs, we're not changing structure, we're only fixing bugs when we do a point release, right? This is not R4. R4 would mean people might need to change things in their package, etc. It's like the point of a minor release is that it's a drop-in replacement, right? I think that's how I understood it, and I have a feeling that's how we all understand it, right? In our release cycle. So we're not allowed to break things; we're only allowed to fix things.
Absolutely. So basically, when we in this particular case, obviously, it cannot be what we're doing with docs. So basically, we have to do a 3.2.1, something like
Right.
that.
Docs is a little bit different. Docs is a little bit different, right? Or at least I'm suggesting it could be a little bit different. We have to decide collectively if that's okay, right? So
that would be my understanding as well. Docs, they are not really connected with the code in a way that it can break something. They should be rather more in line with what is in code, right? So if there is discrepancy between those two, and it's being spotted one way or the other, it should be aligned with what we have in code. So that's basically the problem that we have now with this user reporting the wrong command, the wrong installation command in a docs. And I think that we also can use this as kind of like a test bed of backporting features in a code for future wherever. I don't think that R3 is the branch that will keep like maintaining this and backporting stuff there. It was rather a way of changing how do we release and how do we keep our repositories organized. But somewhere in the future, hopefully we will reach the situation that we have branches that will have to maintain for the customers that are using this, and this might come faster than we think. And it's good to have the process in place for backporting those changes. And I think that docs repo is a good place to start because it's not breaking that much, that's doing tricks with code. That's at least my understanding.
Excellent point. But I will add, it's not completely trivial, right? Because it is a true backport. Let's say we fix that one page for the web UI. It's actually going to be two commits. One commit to main, right? Because this is a fix to our main branch, right? This is the new documentation. But we also have to backport that commit to the R3 branch. So it is a true backport that we'll have to do.
It absolutely is, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think like we said, let's fix it in this way for this particular issue, Rado, and then let's worry about the. So obviously that's going to be a bit expensive, even if you do 3.0. That means all the catalog and everything has to change, right? The contents of the files. So, but that's why I think probably let's figure out the release process first, the state release thing for R4 and beyond, and then think about the dot releases, because I have a feeling once we automate and simplify the main release, even the dot release maybe, because at this point of time, my understanding is that dot release will take almost the same effort as the main release, because it has to go through the same grind cycle, isn't it, Rado? We have to make sure that catalog is pointing to the right things. If the images have changed. So I think that's why I'm thinking once we do that main release stuff, I think that same process could be followed for dot release as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for sure it has to be documented, so we keep it the same in every other case. So I would start with doing some at least some base for a documentation for a steps how to do it. So then we know we're
the first thing was done, adhering to those steps. So I guess that's one other point to add for a to-do list.
Okay. Yeah, I think these were the points at least I wanted to discuss. So for the release process, anything I know Vish, Varadan, and Timo have been silent. Any inputs or anything?
From the automation perspective, not much, because Rado has been doing that, right?
No,
But
the
in
thing
general,
is, the automation, we will write this doc, Vish. The thing is, we had to come up with, we identified a few gaps when we did R3. There is some automation there that exists today. Then probably we need to do further automation. Not only automation, we need to first understand the process. And we understand the process. We need to get that in writing and see how we can better that process. And then based on that, there will be certain automation that we need to do. I mean, I think there are scope for automation, especially for picking versions, picking branches. It's kind of hard-coded everywhere in the file. I think, yeah, we know there are certain avenues for automation. But at that point of time, when it comes, any help is appreciated. That I will appreciate the help.
So in general, the only general feedback for all the SIGs that I have when it comes to releases, when we actually give our status to the TSC meeting, it seems like throughout the release, I mean, not maybe all the time. I know Tal has been speaking up. Of course, you too. We want to call out those risks or whatever it is ahead and set the expectations, in our status for all those 3 SIGs. That might be something that will not specific to release, but in general, even if SIG release has some issues, like let's say our PRs are not being reviewed regularly, or we are not getting traction, or we got fewer people. From a status sharing perspective, we want to keep highlighting them early on. That would be my feedback. Because it's always the same set of people, and we always suck it up and we all do it if you had to work on the weekend or whatever. So the idea would be to continuously keep TSC informed of this decision, informed of the issues, so that way they can go within their organization and try to get more people. That would be my general comment, which is not just specific to release. I know Bala, you might be looking only at release perspective, but that I see is a problem. That me seeing that. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Vish. We will definitely keep a note and we'll do that. And I think TSC has started, at least Kannan said that they were trying to create a small group, where they can go solicit companies for more developers.
Yeah.
I think Kannan had a plan to do it. Not sure whether it materialized, but it's a good point. I mean, we should bring the risks and the deficiencies early in the cycle rather than later.
Yeah, because that way, they become more engaged. Otherwise, they think that everything is going fine, right? I mean, even though they are just like looking at the trend goals, so they need to be informed of this, and also this will also help the other community members to speak up to, right? I mean, we need to tighten our process a little bit. Like for example, we have stories, and then somebody has to come and say, "Hey, yeah, the story is good, but it doesn't have an acceptance criteria. It doesn't cover the dependencies. It doesn't actually tell what infrastructure we need." The idea is to get people to open up about and ask questions there, which will help with some of the estimations to get better and better. That is the way I see it.
Yeah, Vish. I think I totally agree with that. So anything else? Nalo, did you want to talk anything else in this meeting?
I really don't have much besides that. I've started work on those 2 docs, and I'm continuing work with porting some of our end-to-end tests to end-to-end framework from Kubernetes. I think that's basically it. So no, very exciting updates, I guess, for today.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. If nothing else, you can call this off 20 minutes early. So 15, 20, 19, whatever. So, all right. We will continue some of this discussion stall in the SIG automation meeting on Wednesday. Some of the things that we discussed about the UI and other things. But anyway, we from the SIG automation perspective, we started I think the discussion topic on the wish list for the R4. I think it's going to be captured there. I think. Cool.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't put the web UI on the agenda yet. It's on my mind, but yeah, since it did come up right now here, I think we can put it on Wednesday's meeting. If you want, Bala, you can summarize the point and raise it there. You know, as an update from SIG 3 to SIG 2.
Yeah. Cool.
And yeah, I think discussing the future of the web UI is a little challenging right now because it's tied to the future of Torch, which is you know, a very big topic. But yeah, we can raise it as something for people to think about.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Tom. I'll put a topic there. Cool. Thanks, everyone. I'll have a great day then, and Vardhan, have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.